I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to answer your questions verbally, just because I can't type a lot right now. And you've got a lot of really, really smart questions here. Some of them are so huge that I kind of feel like I just can't answer them right now, but I'm going to try to can't answer what I can answer for you, and you can take what you want from it. Okay, so you say, how do you view the state of public radio? What do you think the media can do to improve itself? I don't know. I don't listen so much anymore. I find, and I want to emphasize that this is really subjective. I'm not saying this as kind of a critic of public media, which I was, like a professional critic, right? Where I would have, I would have tried to, where I wouldn't have spoken so exclusively from my own subjective sense of what I like and what I don't like, right? I'm telling you purely about what I like and what I don't like. Although, as I'm saying this, I think this actually connects to the thing I'm getting toward, which is that it feels insincere to me. I feel like it's just, and it's not a problem with public media in particular. It's a problem with all traditional media, where I feel like it's just people making things that they imagine other people will like, right? It's what you do when you're going after some kind of rather undifferentiated mass audience, which was the challenge of traditional broadcasting, right? Like you're not, when I get on the internet and I talk to people, like I'm not trying to reach an undifferentiated audience. I'm trying to reach like the particular kind of person who's kind of like me, and kind of is curious about things in the same way that I am, and kind of talks about things in the same way that I do. And I don't think there's any like market, like I don't think there's like enough people in Indianapolis who are like me in that sense, or are interested in things that I'm interested in, where they would like come together around that show and create a sufficient sort of audience size to make that show sustainable in any way, right? But globally, there is, right? Like that's the magic of the internet, that you can aggregate, the 150,000 weirdos just like you all around the world who are totally distributed, diffused throughout their populations everywhere. That 150,000 weirdos, we can come together through time and space, through the magic of the internet, and converge around a show or an aesthetic, a way of talking about things, a topic area, perhaps even. And that's enough people to make it financially worthwhile, right? So why I like podcasts and YouTubers and stuff is that I feel like there's just a lot more people in those areas who are not acting, right? They're just kind of doing what they want to do, and there's a sincerity to it I just feel like traditional broadcasting hasn't managed to break the habit of yet. Even in like the podcasts that like NPR makes, like I still feel like when I listen to Pop Culture Happy Hour, which I think is a really good show in like lots of ways, I still feel like those people are like kind of performing for this, the fictional average person, right? That person who doesn't exist. And we all had to settle for that back when broadcasting was our only option. And now we don't. So I don't. And that's that. Now that you manage a YouTube channel, do you still find time to host or tell stories on podcasts like the pub? No. I have lots of like, little projects going on all the time. I have these music review podcasts, they're comedy podcasts that I do with my friend Meg, where we kind of pick a musician and we disassemble him, and exclusively we do hymns just because we don't. I don't know. I think I don't want to go after a female musician, not me. Someone else can do it. And anyways, like where it's like we just kind of it's a lot of like actual like music criticism and stuff, but mostly it's just me and my best friend, cracking jokes on each other. And so we have a show about Sting that we kind of got like 2/3 of the way through, and then this YouTube thing happened to me and I had to stop. I will get with Meg and finish that series in January, once I'm no longer teaching. And I have all kinds of other things that I want to do, like other projects that I want to start, but I really need to be disciplined and not, right? I'm like killing myself right now. Like I'm really not well. My temper is really on a hair trigger all the time. I'm physically not fit. I don't feel good. I'm not sleeping well. My back hurts, right? I need to do some self-care, as the kids say these days, right? Like so I need to not add any new projects. I need to just take away. So when I'm done teaching, and I taught my last class on Friday, I'm just giving finals this week, and then I have to do some grading next week and some administrative kind of wrap up stuff. And then I'm done. Like December 20th, I'm done. And then it's Christmas. And then January, I'll, awaken in a new world. Right. And I just need to focus on not adding, just kind of see what my life is like when I just keep to my 2 video a week schedule. And that's all I do other than, be dad. Right. Yeah. In one article, you compared the questions Sanders asked in an interview with Jane Mayer to one a journalist like yourself would ask. How are you able to fine-tune this type of question as you would ask in an interview? I don't know if I can answer that question in the context of like that Sanders thing, because it's a long time since I wrote that. I don't entirely remember what I was talking about. Well, I guess maybe it was sort of Sanders asking questions where he was just trying to get Jane Mayer to confirm what he wanted to know, and even more than that, like what he wanted his audience to believe. Not know, but to believe, right? Instead of asking critical questions that are designed to sort of suss out the validity of an argument, like the one that Mayer was making, right? The primary role of a journalist in that kind of interview should be is to scrutinize. Well, maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I'm sorry. I take that back. I think that what makes a good interview is incredibly dependent upon the situation. Like you see, like, even textbooks even say a good interview will always do this or always do that, and that's all bullshit. Because there's so many different kinds of interviews. There's a time and place for kind of every single kind of question, and so it's really much more about like, who am I? Asking yourself, who am I supposed? What is the best thing for me to do in this particular thing, right? And I don't think like in doing a book interview with Jane Mayer, like every single question should be like some probing, scrutinizing thing. Like, she's not a politician, but she is like a person with a political point of view, and a person who's not just like reporting facts, but is like making an argument, right? And I think that, part of your role there is to scrutinize that argument. And certainly Sanders did not do that, right? I think I'll just stop talking there. Okay. Once you said one of the best ways to stop people like Bill O'Reilly from getting back their reputation is to ignore them. Now, are there many people that you think should be ignored instead of getting attention from the media? Oh, shit. Oh, no. Yeah, I'd say so. But I don't even know where to begin. It's so weird, but I kind of feel like the media should pay. Sorry, the media. There's no such thing. I kind of feel like kind of mainstream political reporters should just pay a little bit less attention to the president, right? And I kind of think they have. Do you remember when Trump was first elected, every single shitty, stupid thing he tweeted was a major story, and that lasted for 2 months, and then it was oh, well, are we really going to do this every single time? Because we're going to be writing 99 of these stories a day. And so I actually think they kind of have backed off, right? And it's amazing how, as I've sort of leaned out of being a journalism professor, I consume way less daily news and virtually no political news. I'm tapped out. I'm almost kind of I kind of never want to go back there again. I'm the world can go fuck itself. I'm done. I did what I could. I'm gonna hang out with my kids and bake cookies until I die, because I'm done. I can't save this place, right? I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't say the media, right? You person who's reading and watching and listening to shit, take some fucking responsibility for what you're consuming. It's when somebody when somebody like all they eat is McDonald's, you don't get mad at McDonald's. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, stop eating there. Go eat something else. Like, people are expected to have some degree. I mean, it's more complicated than that. Is food desertification and education and misinformation and deceptive marketing practice. I mean, there's so it's more complicated than that, right? But broadly speaking, people we expect that for people to be somewhat responsible for their food diet, right? And I think we similarly need to hold people responsible for their information diet, for their media diet. And if all you're consuming is trash from cable news and shit, like, that's kind of on you. Just stop. Don't blame them. They're not force feeding it to you. Watch something else. Go outside, for fuck's sake. Okay. What is an important skill you teach in your classes that you think most people should know? Get between your subject and the light. If you're taking a picture of somebody, we're very inclined to kind of put people up against the light, like the window in the room or the big sun behind them or something like that. And just that's why like so many people are just silhouetted or partially silhouetted in Instagrams and shit. Like, you should be between your subject and the light. So that the light is falling onto your subject's face and they're not backlit and not silhouetted, right? And it's really counterintuitive because, people are worried about casting shadows on their subjects, which, like, that's a valid concern. So don't do that. Just change the angle a little bit and move the shadow. Done. The other thing is, people just want to put someone up against the pretty window because it's pretty, and it's like, yeah, too fucking bad, right? That's why you need to bring a studio light. If you want to put somebody up against the window, because you have to hit their face with a brighter light than the one that's behind them, right? And if you don't have that, you got to turn the fuck around, right? Yeah, okay. That was really probably a bad answer to that question, but it was the first thing that came to mind. What is one of your favorite stories that you've told on public radio shows? Boy, what was my favorite story that I ever did? Oh, man. Oh, I did one. It was a political story. When I was at WBUR in Boston, I went up to report on the lesser known candidate forum, which is the thing they do at St. Anselm College in New Hampshire every presidential election cycle. And because New Hampshire has this like very low bar for getting on the ballot. So like you just have to like pay $1,000, I think is what it is. Like, you don't have to get signatures or anything. You just pay your money and you're on the ballot. So it tends to be where like a lot of crazies who want to run like single issue campaigns or something like that. Like, they'll get on the ballot and run for president in New Hampshire. And this little, liberal arts college in New Hampshire, like, has all of those crazies out for one night. And God, I had so much fun being there for that. And boy, those dudes delivered. Like, this dude who was he was running for president because he wanted to use he wanted to use something called an afterlife orb to contact Jesus Christ, to show us all how to live forever. It's just, mental illness isn't funny. On the other hand, that was awesome. And I'm a bad person, but I still had a good time doing that story. And I think that my copy was funny as fuck. Okay. Your education, music composition comes up in some of the articles you write for a company like Slate. How did you become interested in composition? I don't know. This is the first thing I became interested in, right? Whenever my parents would take me over to somebody's house, and if there was like an instrument in that house or something, I'd peel off and I wouldn't hang out with any of the kids my age or anything. I would just pound on the thing for a long time. Pretty standard way that kids get into music, right? And they got me lessons, and I guess what's interesting, I was interested in composition from the beginning. I wasn't interested in being a player, and that always really hurt me. I never wanted to put in the work to get good at piano or anything like that because I just didn't give a shit. I didn't care about playing. I wanted to write, and that's now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder where that came from. I wanted to make up music. I didn't want to execute it, right? Yeah, that's how I did. And then I studied with a guy at Penn State named Paul Barsom when I was still in high school. He gave me private lessons, and he was a very profound influence on my life. Just a really amazing kind of role model, and just a brilliant man. And yeah, he got me on my way. How does your knowledge in journalism influence the YouTube cooking videos you post? Oh, I hope I really consider it all journalism. Even the recipes, I kind of, well, that's a little bit of a stretch. I try to be kind of repertorial in how I do recipes. And, well, I guess there's a specific way, right? Like, I try to be really disciplined about what I state as fact when I'm doing a recipe video, right? Because there's so much fucking bullshit in cooking. The finest, most brilliant chefs in the world will routinely spout like objectively false, spurious chef garbage, right? It's so bad. So, and all the way down, so many little recipes will just on the internet will just state as fact things about food. And I try to be very careful about what I state as fact, right? I will state empirical observations as fact, like I have seen this happen this way in my kitchen, right? Because that's something that I know to be true. Things that have been confirmed through scientific method, right? Things that there's actual research literature, right? Like I will state those as fact. I'm not as fastidious about citing those things in the recipe videos, just because I think that's not what people are there for. But if I state something as fact that is not an empirical observation, I'm getting it from somewhere. And then there's other things where I will simply state as my opinion, like this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I imagine you might like, or a way that you could find the thing that you like, right? And I'm very clear about how I express those things to make it obvious that what I'm stating is my subjective opinion and not an objective fact, right? And I think that the good thing about doing journalism and a journalism education is that it helps you to distinguish between these things, right? Because a lot of people don't really understand the difference between a fact and an opinion. They really don't. Journalism is at least the kind of journalism you first learn on oh God, what am I saying? The journalism you would learn on the job back before the journalism industry was destroyed, like when you would have your first newspaper job back when that was a thing. Like that kind of reporting is not about what you think. It is about what you know to be true. And so you have to ask yourself a lot of questions about is that just a thing that you're assuming? Is that a thing that you believe? Or is that a thing that you know to be true? To the point where I'll ding my students because they'll say, they'll be quoting a source and they'll say, so-and-so believes that blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you know what that person believes? You don't know what that person believes. What do you know? You know what they said they believe. So-and-so said they believe blah, 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 right? That's the only thing that you know to be true. So I think having done those mental exercises, that sort of applied epistemology, you could call it, helps me to write recipe copy that I think is just a little bit more accurate, I guess is maybe a word, or rigorous maybe, or certainly clear, And then the Monday videos are straight up journalism. That's absolutely journalism. Not kind of like journalism. It just is journalism. And that's the end of that answer. Okay. Your articles like the ones on bodybuilding or videos on hot plates are full of research. How long does research in your work usually take? A long time. It obviously depends on the one, but hours, many hours. These videos take so much time. I think people can tell that, right? But it's more, just doing the videos is more than a full-time job. It's certainly more than 40 hours a week. The shooting, the editing, the research. It's I don't know. I guess I didn't really answer your question because I haven't counted it. And it also just depends so much. Like some take a lot, some take a little. And it's also not the kind of thing like I'll sit down and I'll do research for this video for 6 hours and that's what I did for that 6 hours. No, it's kind of, I tend to kick around ideas and questions for a long time and, diddle on them here, diddle on them there. So that's why it'd be really hard for me to count this up for you. Maybe I probably, because so many people ask me these kinds of questions, I think I should do like a week where I actually do like track exactly how many hours I spend on what. One of your articles was on Tom Petty claiming other people are plagiarizing his music. With so many other cooking channels on YouTube, are you ever concerned about people or comments claiming that you're copying them? No, not really. I mean, so part of like the wonderful thing about like YouTube and really kind of all internet native media is that like everyone's a copyright violator, right? Like everybody is stealing, because you just couldn't function. You couldn't do this kind of shit, and clear every single bit of footage that you're grabbing from somebody else or something like that, right? And so I think it's like, when everyone's a thief, no one's going to point at you and say, hey, you're a thief, because they don't want the finger pointed back at them, right? Like one of the here's an exception that proves the rule, which was like, so Nick's Strength and Power. He's like Nick has become like the preeminent, probably the top bodybuilding YouTube channel. He does sort of bodybuilding news these days. He's sort of the daily journalist of the bodybuilding world on YouTube. And Nick got into this kind of public fracas with another kind of bodybuilding media brand called Generation Iron, and Generation Iron was like republishing Nick's vids. I don't think they were even republishing them. I think they were just embedding them. Yeah, they were just embedding them. And he just, went off. He was always kind of saying, they don't have my permission for this and blah, 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 blah. I was like, Nick, dude, your videos are just nonstop parades of bodybuilding footage and photos that you didn't take and that you didn't get permission for. You're not even crediting the fucking photographers, man. Like, how dare you turn around and get mad at somebody else for stealing anything of yours? And they're not even stealing, they're embedding it. If you don't want people to embed your shit, you can turn off the embed option in your videos, and you damn well know that. Anyway, I think Nick's a cool guy and he's doing really good work, and I don't, this is a rare blight on his reputation. I think otherwise he's a cool dude. But anyway, that's kind of the exception that proves the rule, right? Like most people will not cry thief because they know that they themselves are a thief. And it's like, so when you're talking about like, the kind of content that I do, I guess I could maybe be accused of like stealing sort of cinematographic. Is that the adjectival form of that word? Cinematographic. Shots. I could be accused of stealing other people's shots, right? Like I did a very like Jonathan Weissman type shot recently, and I was aware as I was doing it that like people were going to be like, you took that from Jonathan Weissman, but I think I said in the comments, I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that both Jonathan and I stole that one from Alton Brown, who probably stole it from somebody else. In fact, I think it's like open up the cabinet and talk to the camera inside the cabinet shot, right? Like, I think that Alton stole that from Pee Wee Herman and has acknowledged as much. I could be wrong. I might be making that up. I mean, I'm not making it up that Pee Wee Herman did that. Pee Wee Herman absolutely did that. And I'm pretty sure I saw Alton talk about that at some point. He's at the very least, he's talked about how much he liked Pee Wee Herman as a show. Everybody gets something from somewhere. That said, Jonathan has made that more than just a thing he does sometimes. Like, that's his brand. That's how he opens every single one of his videos. And so even though it's kind of an idea that was already out there, he's really taken it and made it his brand. And so, I accept that people at least made that link, and I'm not mad about it. But I also, I think it would be dumb if he got mad about it, and I have no reason to believe that he was mad about it. He seems like a cool dude, and I've never had a conversation with him, never had a problem with him. Where were we? What did you ask me? Plagiarizing. Oh, and so then there's the issue of recipes, right? There's actually like a body of law about about whether or not you can copyright a recipe or patent a recipe. And this is something I want to kind of do in a video, properly researched. So I'm kind of talking about out of my ass right now. This is the not yet fully read into the topic answer to your question, which I probably shouldn't even be giving you. So please don't quote from this. As I understand it, you can't copy a recipe. You can't copyright a recipe. You can copyright recipe copy. That is to say, the specific wording in which you lay out that recipe, but the actual recipe itself is not subject to copyright. You can patent food, but when you apply for a patent, you have to demonstrate that your idea is novel, right? That it wasn't already just out there. And so you could never patent, a basic brownie recipe or something like that. Like the only kind of things that you can patent in food are like kind of more esoteric processes, for processed foods and stuff like that. And very rarely, I've been told this by food scientists, it's very rare for a lot of companies to patent food processes anyway, because the patents expire. They only last 20 years. And so if you patent, the formula behind your soda, it'll be great for 20 years. And then the patent application is a matter of public record, right? So like everyone will see inside the application, like exactly how to make Coca-Cola. And that's why Coca-Cola to this day is not patented. The company just controls that recipe through in this incredible internal multi-layered secrecy schmiggy-doo where like no one at the company knows the whole recipe. Nobody's got the one key to fire the nuclear missiles. Like the the captain and the executive officer have to turn the keys at the exact same time to fire the missiles or to make the Coca-Cola. Anyway, that's I just got like 3 ideas for great videos just then, and Coca-Cola is right up the street. I wonder if they would talk to me about that. Okay. An overwhelming amount of your commenters are positive. A small percentage leave negative or hate comments in general. How do you deal with negative feedback? Poorly is how I deal with it. Not so much because it bothers me I mean, sometimes things bother me personally, but it's mostly just like I'm just aghast at how people behave on the internet. I mean, I think it's such a bad thing, and we need to fix this, right? I don't want to live in a world that accepts the kind of conduct that is accepted on the internet that would never be accepted in person, right? People who like say things to me on the internet would never say those to me on the street, because or they would, but they would expect to like get into a physical altercation as a result of it, right? So I just don't. It's more like I'll call out like shitty comments just because on the principle of the thing, right? Like I want people to have to deal with the fact that, you didn't just say that to the void. You said that to an actual human being, and I'm standing right here, you dick. But I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. Going back to people who shouldn't get attention, I shouldn't give them attention. Don't feed the trolls. It's the first rule of the internet, right? I do feel I need to get involved when people start questioning things on a factual basis, right? Or saying facts that I know to be wrong. Like on the video that went live today about honey, like there's this person like saying like, honeybees are not actually pollinators. It's a different kind of bee. And that is just 1,000% not true. And so I'm going to get into that with a person, or the person who was like saying that any honey that comes in a bear-shaped bottle is not really honey. It's just honey flavored corn syrup. And there's just like no reason to believe that. It's like, there's this one like food blogger who's basically like the anti-vaxxer of food wrote an article about that. And so like a bunch of people believe it. And what's so fucking annoying is when those people, they don't just say, hey, I heard this and I think I might believe it. They say, Adam, right, that stuff isn't really honey. Like, duh. And I'm like, really? Do I know that? Do we know that now? Let's scrutinize how we know that. Let's do a little bit of that applied epistemology, right? Let's think about what we know versus what we think, or what we strongly suspect, or what we believe, right? Okay. So I should deal with it less. I mean, because it's like the commenters most of the commenters are so lovely, and I should be giving them more attention. But I think, as I discussed in my Q&A video, like I have a hang up about interacting with or thanking commenters who are praising me, because I don't want to look like I'm trying to breed sycophants, or more substantively, I don't want to breed sycophants, right? I don't want to create a cult of personality. I don't want to be that guy, you know. But just so I've not yet figured out a good strategy for doing all that kind of shit. But people who leave positive comments, please know that I read most of them, and they mean a lot to me. They really do. It's lovely. My friend who does the YouTube channel 12 Tone has a really good strategy that I've tried to emulate, where they, and their pronouns are they, them. They will, I'm specifying that so you understand that I'm talking about one person. They will read the comments for the first 24 hours, right? Basically just to make sure they didn't get anything wrong, right? Because generally, if you really fuck something up, you're going to know about it really quickly in the comments. And so they'll pay attention to it for like a day, and then never look at that thread ever again, just as a way of staying sane, because it can really wear on you psychologically. What are some current problems you think need more focus on? Like global problems? I don't know how to answer that. That question is too big. I take a pass on that. In 24 hours, your fundraising project for your hometown, Macon, Georgia. Not my hometown, just where I live. My hometown is State College, Pennsylvania. That's where I was born. Hometown, Macon, Georgia, hit its money goal to help feed the people. What inspired you to start a GoFundMe? Having money. This is my first time in my life I've had, money, more money than I needed. Very first time in my life, I've had more money than I needed. And I would like, what I've always thought about, because I worked in nonprofit media for so long. I was always asking people who had money for money, right? So that I could go and do good things with it. And when you do that, when you're asking other people for money, doing that kind of fundraising, the thought occurs to you, boy, what would I give money to if I was one of those people, right? So I've thought about that a lot, and I've got all kinds of ideas of like places I like to give money to, or people I like to give money to. I have to be careful because I don't know how much longer this gravy train is going to last, right? Like, and I kind of, I have a feeling that it's not. So I can't go crazy, right? So this was like a very much just dipping my toes into that, right? So I just did a simple $1,000 matching goal. Like, so people gave $1,018. I gave my $1,000. We donated $2,018 to the food bank in Middle Georgia. That's like awesome. I think it's logical for a channel such as mine to give money to hunger related charities, and there's like a lot of like research literature on charitable giving that indicates that, as I said in that post, giving to a food bank is just like so much bang for your buck as a giver, right? It really it's virtually no administrative costs or overhead. Like it's going straight to the people and giving them something that they actually need, aka food, right? So that was cool. I also feel like Macon has given me a lot, both in terms of just being a nice place and a cheap place to live while I do this stuff, but also in terms of like, I shoot footage around town all the time. I'm always kind of trading on what an interesting place this is. And therefore I owe it, so I want to try to give back to it. And also it's, especially as you get older, and you become utterly overwhelmed by the world's problems, hence my inability to answer your previous question. You became as you get older and you understand the world's problems more, you become totally paralyzed, because you realize the intractability and the massiveness of it all. And so it helps to focus more on something small like your town. And maybe that's a mere psychological Band-Aid. Maybe that's utterly meaningless. But on the other hand, we do what we can do, and I can try to make this place better. And this place needs it. It's a very poor city that I live in. I that went well, and so I would say that if this year if I'm able to maintain my current like kind of income throughout this whole coming year through like all of 2019, is that what this year is? Is this 2019? No, this is 2019. I'm talking about 2020. Sorry. If I'm able to kind of keep making this kind of money through all of 2020, I think I want to do that same fundraiser again, but with like 10 times the goal. Like I'll match $10,000 or something like that. And we'll see if we can do that. But I would love to be, I would love to get like really rich. Like not just because I want to be rich for all the reasons that everybody wants to be rich, but I have all kinds of shit that I want to give like sick amounts of money to. Like I have all these like lawsuits I want to fund, like lawsuits that I just wish would happen because about things that piss me off. Or make me kind of righteously indignant, and I just want to find a lawyer and a plaintiff and give them all of the money to do that. And some of it is it's like a lot of it is like shit that's like, it's important enough that like, my indignation is righteous, but it's not important enough that like the ACLU should be spending its time on it. Right. So like, I'll give you an example. So like, it super annoys me that the open records law in Georgia, the law that every state has that says that, if you as a member of the public ask for some information or a document that a government agency has, they have to give it to you, unless they have a good reason not to. Right. And the open records law in Georgia does not specify how that request has to be made. Right. But like so many public agencies will ask you to submit it in writing, often in the form of what they'll call a formal open records request, which is not a thing that exists. There's no form, there's no like language, there's no secret code. You don't have to like cite the statute with the little squiggly line symbol in it that no one knows how to type. Right. I mean, I do that kind of shit because I know that's like part of the kabuki of open records requesting is you have to like communicate through your request that you're a person who actually knows the system and knows your rights and is going to be a problem for them if they don't actually fulfill your request. Right. Anyway, I'm digressing. So anyway, the law in Georgia does not specify how that request should be made. And yet all these agencies require you to put it in writing. Well, you know who that discriminates against? People who are illiterate. Or don't have, or for some other reason, don't have the ability to get you an email or even a written note, So I just kind of want to find like someone who can't read or write, which there's a lot of people like that left in the first world, believe it or not. Find someone who can't read or write, like, get them to like try to do an open records request, and then when they are denied because they don't do it in writing, I just want to pay for like that lawsuit, because I want it to be established that, as long as you like give your request in a reasonable way, not like a crumpled up napkin under the door, but like you go to them and you say, this is what I would like, and I like they should give it to you. Like that's the end of the conversation. Anyway, that's the kind of stupid shit that I like to do if I get really, really rich, but I am not there yet. What about Mercer University? Makes it a good place to learn journalism. We were started. Well, not my department. The center where I have been employed, called the Center for Collaborative Journalism at Mercer, was started, 7 years ago now, or almost eight, with a big, about $5 million in grant funding, mostly from the Knight Foundation, because they were trying to fix what they saw as a problem in journalism education, that like it was all very theoretical and not very applied, and journalists were coming out of school not having the first skill about how to actually be a reporter, and so we were charged with kind of building a teaching hospital for journalism, is what they called it, like a place where you would go and you would study in college like a normal college, but you'd also work in newsrooms all the way through your 4 years of schooling, and hopefully become more useful to a news organization on the other end of that. And there are a few kind of teaching hospital programs, most of them funded by Knight, around the country, but Mercer is, I believe, by far the smallest, in a good way, right? Like it's like a tight liberal arts college, family, close-knit environment, which that's really the right kind of school for some people, and it's not the right kind of school for everybody. And if you're the other kind of person, then don't go here. But so there's that, and then we also have more and and a bigger variety of news organizations at the table than I think any of those other programs, right? So like we've got our public broadcaster, Georgia Public Broadcasting, we've got our daily newspaper, The Telegraph, we've got our local TV top dog television news station, which is Channel 13 WMAZ, which is a Tegna station, and then we have this relationship with ESPN, and so our students work and get an incredible variety of experience: nonprofit, for-profit, text-based, broadcasty, online. It's all kind of there, and we really continue to have kind of more opportunities than I think really good students to take advantage of them. And I've also observed some problems with this model over the course of my time here. I would not speak of it unflaggingly positively. But I don't think any of that is like Mercer's fault. I think it's sort of just kind of inherent problems mostly just with like the journalism industry and its utter ongoing collapse. But that's a long thing. And I feel like I've already talked to you for a really long time. How long is this file? Let's see. Unlock phone.